They say the past is supposed to stay in the past, but sometimes, it shows up gift-wrapped, delivered by courier, and timed perfectly to ruin everything you thought you'd left behind. My ex and I hadn't spoken in over 2 years. No texts. No awkward run-ins. Nothing. So when her name showed up on the return address of a box at our wedding reception, I should have known better than to open it. But I did. And inside was the kind of truth that doesn't just ruin a party, it burns down a future. The day had been perfect. I mean, movie scene perfect. Sunlight filtering through the chapel windows, the soft scent of lilacs in the air, my bride, Sarah, glowing in that timeless way that makes you forget every fight you ever had just to get there. We'd made it. After everything, long-distance years, family disapproval, and our fair share of late-night doubts, we were finally husband and wife. The reception was in full swing. Laughter. Clinking glasses. My best man telling some embarrassing story from college I thought we'd buried forever. And then someone handed me a package. No bow. No wrapping paper. Just a brown cardboard box, taped up neat. There was a tag on it, to the groom. Congratulations. Brittany. Brittany. I hadn't heard that name in so long it almost didn't register. But when it did, my stomach dropped. My hand actually trembled a little as I turned the box over, like it might explode in my lap. She was my ex. The serious one. The almost fiancé. The, we almost built a life together, kind of woman. We broke up 2.5 years ago, and it wasn't clean. It ended with a slammed door and a 3-word text I'll never forget. Don't contact me. And I hadn't. So why now? Why today? I should have ignored it. Tossed it in the trunk and opened it in a week, or never. But curiosity? That's a hell of a drug. Especially when it's mixed with fear. I stepped away from the crowd, into the venue's little courtroom, and sat the box on a table. It wasn't heavy. But it felt loaded. Inside, there was tissue paper. Not pretty, just crumpled like someone didn't care what it looked like. Beneath it, a white envelope. And under that, a small folder. I opened the envelope first. No card. No warm wishes. Just a single handwritten note in Brittany's familiar, sharp script. You deserve to know. That's all it said. I opened the folder. A paternity test. My name. Brittany's name. And one more. Olivia. Age, 1 year, 8 months. The test had been completed a week ago. Signed, stamped, certified. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. I just stood there. Holding this manila folder like it weighed 100 pounds. Reading that number over and over again like it might change if I blinked hard enough. 99.99%. I sat down. My knees didn't ask for permission. My head started spinning, trying to do the math. We broke up just under 2 years ago. She must have gotten pregnant almost immediately after. And never told me. No calls. No emails. Nothing. And now she was telling me on my wedding day. No. Not telling me. Showing me. Like it was revenge. Like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. I sat there for I don't know how long, just staring at the paper. My heart pounding. Not just from shock, but from the thudding, terrifying realization that my entire life had just shifted without warning. Behind me, through the door, I could hear music starting again. Sarah was probably wondering where I was. People would be raising glasses, giving toasts. And I was back here holding proof that I had a daughter I'd never met, from a woman I hadn't spoken to in nearly 2 years. What do you do with that? I couldn't even process what emotion came first. Guilt? Anger? Shame? All I knew for sure in that moment was this. The past wasn't done with me. And if I didn't handle this right, it was about to destroy everything I just built. I must have read that test a dozen times. Same result. Same names. That same number staring back like it knew what it was doing. 99.99%. That kind of certainty doesn't come often in life. But there it was. Scientific, final, cold. I had a daughter. A child. Walking around somewhere, maybe learning words, maybe toddling across some living room floor, and I had no idea until 5 minutes ago. And now I was a husband. To a woman who didn't know a thing about this. I folded the documents and slipped them back in the folder, stuffing it under my jacket as I stepped out of the courtroom. The reception was still humming. Laughter rising over music. The smell of champagne and catered roast chicken. The life I was supposed to be starting was unfolding just 20 feet away. But in my head, I was somewhere else entirely. I spotted Sarah across the room. Her back was to me, but I knew that silhouette like I knew my own reflection. She was talking to her mom, both of them smiling, probably fielding more compliments about the dress, the flowers, the glow that brides are supposed to have. She looked happy. Untouched. I felt like a fraud just breathing in the same room. I made it halfway across the floor before she saw me. Her smile widened. She waved. And then it dropped, just a little. Something in my eyes must have given it away. She walked up, slipping her arm through mine, voice low. "You okay?" I tried to answer. I really did. But the words jammed up somewhere between my guilt and the knot in my throat. I managed a nod. A lie wrapped in a gesture. She tilted her head, that soft concern blooming in her eyes. "You look pale. Are you sick?" I shook my head. "Not now, Ben. Not here. I just needed a minute. Lot of emotions, I guess." She leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder like she always did when she sensed I wasn't okay but didn't want to push. It almost broke me. Because this woman trusted me. She'd chosen me. She'd vowed herself to me, hours ago. And I was already hiding something. Something huge. "I'm gonna grab some air," I said, forcing a smile. "Just need to clear my head." She offered to come with me, but I waved her off. Kissed her on the forehead and stepped outside before my hand started shaking again. The venue's garden was empty. Just me and a few dim lanterns swaying in the breeze. I found a bench behind a hedge, sat down, and took the folder out again. "Read the note one more time. You deserve to know." Part of me wanted to be furious. How dare she blindside me like this? How cruel do you have to be to time something so deliberately? But another part, that quieter voice in me, the one I didn't want to listen to. It said maybe this wasn't revenge. Maybe this was guilt. Maybe this was the only way she could make me see her after 2 years of silence. But why now? Why not months ago? Why not when Olivia was born? Was this about me? Or about the life Brittany thought I didn't deserve to have? I pulled out my phone. Opened the last message she ever sent me. "Don't contact me." It was still there, untouched since the night we split. I opened a new message. "We need to talk. Not about us. About Olivia. Call me. Please." I didn't hit send. Not yet. I stared at the screen until the wind started to sting my eyes. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Light, hesitant. "Sarah." "Ben." I looked up. She was framed by the warm light from the windows, hair catching in the wind. She looked like she did in that first dream I had of our wedding, before I even proposed. "You're scaring me," she said gently. I tried to smile again, but it didn't come. "Something happened," I said. She sat beside me. Her hands found mine. What is it? I looked down at the folder. At her ring. At my life, hanging by a single unspoken sentence. And I said the only thing I could. I need to tell you something. But once I do, everything might change. Sarah didn't speak right away. She just looked at me, waiting. Her eyes wide, her body still, like she already knew whatever I was about to say wasn't good, and needed a second to brace herself. I took a breath. The kind of breath you take before walking into a courtroom. Or a fire. I got a package today, I started. From Brittany. Her expression didn't change. Not yet. But the temperature around us dropped. She sent a wedding gift. I handed her the envelope first. The note. Just those 4 words. You deserve to know. Sarah read it. Twice. Then looked back at me. What does she mean? I didn't answer. Not with words. Just handed her the folder. She opened it, hand steady. But I could see her jaw tighten as she skimmed the first line. Then the next. Her eyes flicked back and forth. Fast. Disbelieving. And then she froze. She stared at the final page for a long time. Long enough that I felt the weight of every second settle into my chest like bricks. When she finally looked up, her voice was brittle. You have a daughter? I nodded. Slowly. She blinked hard. Like her brain refused to let that sentence make sense. You have a child, Ben. And you never told me. I didn't know, Sarah, I said, the words tumbling over each other. I swear, I had no idea. Not until today. I haven't talked to Brittany since before she gave birth. We broke up, badly. She told me not to reach out. I didn't. But you didn't, wonder, she asked, the question breaking at the edges. Didn't ask? Didn't think maybe she was pregnant. I looked down. The truth? I had wondered. Just once. About a month after the breakup. Brittany had gone quiet so suddenly, and we'd been together for years. I remember lying in bed, thinking what if. But she never said anything. Never hinted. And I let it go. And that was what I couldn't explain away. I should have checked in, I said. I should have made sure. I didn't. And that's on me. Sarah stood up, folding the folder in half like she couldn't bear to touch it anymore. So she waited until today to tell you? I nodded again. I think it was meant to hurt me. To ruin this. She laughed, sharp and joyless. Well, congratulations to her. Job well done. I stood too, trying to reach for her hand, but she pulled away like my touch burned. Sarah, I didn't cheat. I didn't hide anything. This blindsided me too. She shook her head. But now it's part of our marriage, Ben. On day 1. You've got a kid. A whole other life. That doesn't just stay in a file folder. She turned her back to me, hands pressed to her face. And I just stood there. Watching the woman I loved fall apart because of a truth I didn't even know I carried. Eventually, she spoke again, her voice quieter now. Do you want to meet her? I didn't answer right away. Because the answer was complicated. How do you say yes without sounding like you're walking away from the person in front of you? But how do you say no to your own child? Yes, I said finally. But not without you. Not without us. She didn't respond. Just walked back inside without another word, leaving me alone in the garden, still holding the crumpled note like it could somehow explain all this. Back in the reception hall, the music had started up again. Glasses clinking. Voices rising. It was still our wedding night. But the future we'd imagined? It had already started unraveling. I didn't go back into the reception right away. I stood in the garden alone, the folder under my arm, Brittany's note still in my jacket pocket like some kind of poison-laced apology. The wind had picked up, and with it, that old feeling I used to get when something went wrong but no one had said it yet, the silence before a storm. Sarah hadn't come back out. I didn't blame her. But inside, my phone was buzzing. Friends. Cousins. A couple of groomsmen. Probably wondering where the groom had gone. Where the bride had disappeared to. Maybe they were starting to whisper. I couldn't bring myself to care. Instead, I called Brittany. The line rang once. Twice. Straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I texted instead. You made your point. Call me. We need to talk about Olivia. And then, like she had planned it all along, the phone rang. I answered on the first ring. There was a pause. And then her voice, like glass in the dark. I didn't know how else to make you look. Not feel. Not understand. Not wake up. Look. That was her motive. She wanted me to see her. To see what I'd missed. Or maybe to see the wreckage I left behind. Either way, it wasn't about the truth. It was about the timing. Why now? I asked. My voice was calm. Too calm. She didn't answer right away. I told myself I could do it without you, she said finally. Raise her. Move on. But when I heard you were getting married. Her voice trailed off, then returned, colder. I realized you got everything you wanted. And I got left holding the mess. You could have told me, Brittany. I know, she said. I know I should have. But I was angry. You walked away like I was just a chapter in your story. We were toxic, I said. You know that. Yes, she replied. But I was still carrying a piece of you. I closed my eyes. That sentence, God, it cut deeper than anything else. I thought about Olivia. 1 year and 8 months old. Just old enough to say, Mama. Maybe not, Dada. Not yet. She had no idea who I was. No idea that her father just got married today. That he only found out about her existence between the speeches and the first dance. She has your eyes, Brittany said, softer now. I didn't know what to say to that. I don't want your money, she added quickly, almost defensively. This isn't about that. I couldn't let you start a new life without knowing. You let me live nearly 2 years without knowing. She didn't argue. Just said, I'm sorry. But that word, sorry, it didn't undo anything. It didn't rewind the night. Didn't fix what I had to walk back into. I need time, I said. You have a daughter, she said. You don't have time anymore. Then she hung up. I went back into the reception. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. Sarah was nowhere in sight. My best man, Mark, spotted me by the doors and walked over. His grin faded the moment he saw my face. What happened? He asked under his breath. I pulled him aside and told him the basics. No emotion. Just facts. His jaw dropped. A kid? Today? I nodded. He looked around, lowered his voice. You gonna tell everyone? Not now. He didn't press. Just patted my shoulder and said he'd cover for us. Said Sarah told her maid of honor she had a headache and went upstairs to the bridal suite. I nodded and headed that way, heart pounding with every step. Outside the door, I paused. Knocked once. No answer. I knocked again. Then I heard her voice. Come in. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, still in her gown, makeup smudged, holding the folder in her lap. I read it again, she said. Trying to figure out what hurts more, the fact that it's real, or the fact that she waited until today to tell you. I sat beside her, careful not to get too close. She wanted to hurt me, I said. But she didn't just hurt me. Sarah looked at me, eyes rimmed red. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. I don't know if I can be a stepmom before I even figure out how to be a wife. And I didn't have an answer for that. Because I didn't know if she should have to be. There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels suspended. Fragile. Like the room itself is holding its breath, waiting to see if the next sentence will break it all. That's how it felt in the bridal suite. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, still in her wedding dress, the train crumpled around her like it didn't belong anymore. I sat across from her in a tux that suddenly felt 3 sizes too small, the collar tighter than it had been that morning. My hands rested in my lap, empty, useless. The paternity test folder was between us. Like a third person in the room. She stared at it. I always thought if something tore us apart, she said, it'd be something we did. Something that was ours. I said nothing. Because the truth was, I'd thought that too. You plan for disagreements. For hard years. For sick parents, tight finances, careers pulling you in different directions. But not this. Not a child from a past you thought you'd buried. She looked up at me, eyes searching mine like she was still trying to figure out if I was the man she married, hours ago. You love her? She asked. I blinked. I haven't even met her. No, she said. Not Brittany. The baby. I hesitated. The question wasn't fair, and we both knew it. But she wasn't asking for logic, she was asking for truth. I don't know, I said. But I want to. She nodded. Slowly. Like that was the answer she expected but didn't know how to receive. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered again. Then don't, I said, before I could stop myself. Her head snapped up. I mean, I corrected, trying to steady my voice, don't force yourself to be okay with something that isn't okay. This wasn't supposed to be part of our beginning. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. You said you wanted a family, she said. I just didn't think it would start with someone else's baby. I didn't either. We sat there, 2 strangers in wedding clothes, trying to recognize each other through the cracks. Then, after what felt like a lifetime, she stood. Walked to the window. Hugged herself. I need space, she said. Tonight? I asked. She turned around, and something about the way her face softened told me she still loved me, but didn't know if that love was enough to outrun the weight of this. I think we should stay in separate rooms. Just for tonight. I need to think. Alone. I nodded. Not because I wanted to. But because I had no right to ask her to do anything else. She handed me the folder, walked to the door, and turned before leaving. If this had happened 6 months ago, she said, maybe we could have handled it together. But today? You walked into this with a promise, and someone else's truth strapped to your back. And then she was gone. I stayed in that suite for hours. Never took the tux off. Never turned on the lights. Just sat there, staring out the window at the empty courtyard, imagining what Olivia looked like. Did she have my eyes? Did she laugh like I did as a kid, loud, unapologetic, always too much for quiet rooms? Had she already said, Dada? Would she ever say it to me? I texted Brittany again. When can I meet her? She didn't respond right away. And maybe that was a good thing, because when she finally did, I didn't know how to feel. Her message was short. Tomorrow. 11 a.m. The park on 8th and Birch. You'll know her. The morning sun was too bright for how I felt. I stood at the edge of the park, dress shoes crunching on gravel, the same suit pants from the night before wrinkled and damp from a restless night on a couch that smelled like lavender and loss. My tie was gone. My ring was still on. I didn't know what to expect. There's no manual for meeting your child for the first time, especially when you didn't know she existed 48 hours ago. No script to follow. No safe place to put your hands. Just a bench near the duck pond, and a little girl wobbling after a pigeon with arms outstretched and tiny shoes lighting up with every step. I knew it was her the moment I saw her. Something in the way her mouth curled, curious and stubborn at the same time. The kind of look I saw in the mirror when I was a kid, when I used to take apart remote controls just to see how they ticked. Brittany was sitting on the bench, sunglasses on, hair tied back. She stood when she saw me. Picked Olivia up with practiced ease and held her close. She's usually shy around new people, Brittany said. Me too, I replied. We stood like that for a moment. Just, standing. Not exes. Not enemies. Just two people standing in the shadow of a little girl who didn't ask for any of this. Why now? I asked again. Why the wedding? Brittany didn't flinch. Because I knew you wouldn't be able to ignore it. That's not fair. None of this is fair, she said, her voice firm. But I couldn't keep lying to myself, pretending she didn't have a right to know you. And you didn't have a right to know her. She looked tired. Not just physically, but the kind of tired that settles in the bones. The kind that comes from carrying something too long on your own. She set Olivia down. The girl toddled toward a patch of dandelions and plopped onto the grass with the ease only a child can have. Brittany nodded at her. Go. Sit. Talk to her. I hesitated. I don't know what to say. Start with her name, she said, and walked away. I knelt down next to Olivia. Her hands were covered in dirt. She looked up at me with a squint, studying me like I was some new puzzle piece that didn't quite fit yet. Hi, Olivia, I said. She blinked. Tilted her head. I paused. Then smiled, as gently as I could. I'm Ben. She didn't say anything. Just handed me a flower. Or maybe it was a weed. Either way, I took it like it meant something. Because it did. We sat there for a long while. Me and this little stranger with my blood in her veins and my whole future on her hands. She babbled about birds and colors and pointed to the water like it held secrets she could almost explain. And I listened. Every word. Every laugh. Every time she tugged at my sleeve like she already knew I belonged to her in some way. And maybe I did. That afternoon, I went home. Not to a honeymoon suite. Not to a hotel. Home. Sarah was there. Her dress was gone. Her makeup wiped clean. She sat at the kitchen table in jeans and a sweatshirt, her hair up in a messy knot. She looked like a stranger and the love of my life, all in one. I stood in the doorway. How was she? She asked. Beautiful, I said. Smart. Loud. A little reckless. Sarah smiled, just barely. Sounds like you. I sat across from her, heart in my throat. I don't know what this means for us, I said. But I'm not going to lie to you again. I have a daughter. And I'm going to be in her life. Sarah nodded slowly. I know. I still love you. She looked at me, eyes glassy. I know that too. And then she reached across the table and took my hand. Not a promise. Not a guarantee. But maybe, the start of something new. A different kind of beginning. Not a clean one. Not easy. But real.